Buenos días, bienvenidos a una nueva celebración.
Good morning and welcome to the new edition of the World Day of Animation in the Fundación Academia de Cine. My name is Julio Díaz. I'm a member of the board of the Cinema Academy, and we have a wonderful program with which we're going to make the most of its wonderful content, and we'll have great professionals both from Spain and abroad participating. They will show us the latest news of the work. Now, I'll like a big round of applause for Don Juan Gonzalo Cabrera, the Managing Director of Culture and Industry from the Regional Government of Madrid. Thank you.
Buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. And hello to Julio Díaz as the member and representative of animation of the Academia de Cine, the Cinema Academy, that hosts once again this event that keeps growing year after year. From 2019 till now, there's increasingly more people participating in this event. We've had to leave quite a few people outside. I'm really sorry that not everyone could fit in the room. And on the other hand, I'm really happy to know that the event is so strong and is given so much content. I would also like to congratulate the new collaborators, José Antonio Rodríguez, please, and Rodrigo Blas.
Su ayuda y apoyo durante la
So thank you very much, because your presence here has allowed us to have representatives that are great on the World Day of Animation. The objective is to give greater visibility to the artists and studios that we have in the region of Madrid, and also to generate contact between the creators of the region and the international members, through presentations of great artistic and technical level that will be available on the YouTube channel of the regional government's website. And I will encourage you to also look at the YouTube videos from the past editions, because they are available both in English and Spanish, and they are really interesting. I also like to congratulate the 4 short films that will be nominated to the Goya. The titles are El Cambio de Rueda of Begoña Arrostegui, Lola Lolita Lolaza by Mabel Lorzano, Carmen y la Cuchara de Palo by Carlos Mira, and one by Victor Monigote. Some of them are here. The directors will come to present the trailers of their short films before the presentations along the 3 days. And one more addition that adds to the work done by the Regional Government of Madrid, Madrid for the Goya, that has given us so many good results with The Monkey, Blue and Ballon, Madrid 2120 or Cazatalentos. And this year we have great personalities with us. We are going to inaugurate with a great director, Mark Andrews. Welcome, Mark, to Madrid. Well, wonderful director. Many of you know him because of Brave. I know this is the first time that you're in Madrid, so congratulations, and I hope you really enjoy this edition, and I hope you really enjoy the city. And we also have the presence of Robot Dreams that won the Goya. I'm sure you've seen it. Nominated to the Oscar for Best Animation Movie, Pablo Bargel and Marca Gil, who's the illustrator of the storyboard, and José Luis Aguerra, art director, will talk about how they created this story and the whole process. It was totally done in Madrid. And then we'll have Borja Montoro with us, who's going to give us a great talk. Luis Mandia, the director of The Glass Worker, who's here with us. Usman, you're welcome to Madrid as well. It's a great pleasure to have you. This is his first 2D film, animation film in Pakistan, and he's going to represent his country in the Oscars. So you're in Los Angeles, right? You were there trying to gain support. Well, I hope that you have great success with your film. And then we'll also look into the animation business with the expert Joel Gilbert, who lives in Los Angeles. Thank you for being here too with us. Thank you for being here with us. The inspirer Pedro Solís, who's going to talk to us about Buffalo Kids, one of the most successful films of the year. We also have Salvador Simó, and he's going to talk about how he looks at directing. We'll also have the innovative Madrid studio Raised by Monsters that will present to us Crimson Hardwork, and who went to Sitges. And we also have a #1 series in Netflix, Bad Dinosaurs, that was held in the Madrid studio. We also look at the different Victor and his different work presented through different festivals. Where are you, Victor? Yes, I can find you. Thank you. And finally, it'll be great to have once again the largest studio in Spain, Sky Days Animation Studios in Madrid. That's going to talk about Spellbound, the new film. And then we'll conclude with the projection of some short films of the best of Annecy. You know, we are a collaboration with Annecy. If we cannot go to Annecy, we'll bring Annecy to you. It's the greatest animation festival in the world that will be also here with us thanks to the regional government of Madrid. So I hope that over the next 3 days you'll enjoy this World Animation Day. I hope you establish many contacts, you do a lot of networking, and let's hope that the event even continues to grow in the future. And it'll be great if you can all be with us next year again. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy it.
Muchas gracias, Gonzalo. Yo simplemente quería daros las gracias.
So I would like to thank you all for being here with us, for once again filling up the Cinema Academy. I would like to talk about Voxel School and LA Studios and the collaboration that we do with them, and that's why we have Mark Andrews here with us. Let's show a couple of videos. Thank you.
Pues nada, muchísimas gracias.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. A big round of applause for Mark Andrews, who's been for 20 years in the world of animation. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hola, Madrid.
Hello, Madrid.
Very excited to be here and talk to you all about my career and the people I've met from when I started out in school all the way up to now. I'm going to talk about how the industry has changed over that time, nearly 30 years from when I started, and what's, all the way to what's happening now with the rise of technology and helping us tell fantastic stories. But first, I'd like to thank the Academy de Cine for having me, and El Guiri Studios, the Voxel School, and the Comunidad de Madrid for having me here for this fantastic event. So a round of applause. It's brilliant. So excited to be around filmmakers also here that are out of Madrid, and Pakistan's fantastic. So how did I even get started? Well, I've drawn my entire life. It's something I did as a kid. It was my way to escape. I was a very nervous, anxiety-filled kid, school, afraid of bullies, all of that. So when I got home, I can disappear into drawings. And my drawings always consisted of characters and worlds, right? I was just making things up. I loved comic books while I was growing up. DC, not so much, more Marvel. I was watched Kimba the White Lion, which was some anime that was on early on when I was little, up to Speed Racer, to Star Blazers, to Robotech, to Akira. And about that time when I was in high school, graduated high school, I hadn't had any formal artistic training whatsoever. And so I went to a city college where I studied rendering, life drawing, and then I did that for a year. And then when my brother finally graduated, my younger brother, he found a school that had an animation course. And he said, let's go to this city college and let's take this one animation course that they have. And I said, great, let's do that. And so we went and did that, which was great. And that teacher, Ed Harvey, told us about CalArts. And so that was the first idea that we had of, wait a minute, we can go to school, learn how to draw and animate, and then get paid to draw for the rest of our lives. That was a dream come true for a kid who just drew all the time already. So me and my brother, we went and enrolled in CalArts. We were there for 4 years. We got our degree. And then I got hired into the Disney internship. Disney had moved their animation studios from Los Angeles, from Glendale, where they started in Burbank, all out to Florida. You guys may have known that in Disney World, you can go into the animation building, and they were locked behind glass, and you could see all these people drawing and animating behind glass as the tour went by, and going, oh, they're drawing Mickey Mouse. Oh, what are they drawing over there? It's fantastic. So they finally brought them back the year I graduated CalArts in '93, and they had the internship. So my mentors were Glenn Keane, you may have heard of, Dave Pruxma, who was another fantastic animator. So we had all the best had come, and they were working on, what were they working on at the time? They were working on just finishing up Beauty and the Beast. They were all busily animating on Lion King. Pocahontas was being made. Hunchback of Notre Dame was just an idea. It was just beginning of time. So this was really, I got out at the very beginning of the resurgence, what they call the golden age of animation now. This is when it came back. When I was in school, my sophomore year, that's when Little Mermaid came out, which was amazing. So that's an entirely 2D universe. Computers were just getting into it at this point. I'll get to that. But so I did the internship, and then, there was only 5 of us in the internship. I was the only one out of 5 that did not get hired because I rocked the boat. I asked questions, I put back, and I don't like to get put in a little box. At the end of the internship, they asked us to present either animation or effects animation or cleanup in between or story, and I decided I really liked animation, so I made an animation presentation. I really liked story. I made a story presentation, and I gave them both. And because I did twice the work, I didn't get hired. So it was really weird. And then I was blacklisted at Disney because I upset their machine. But it worked out very well for me in the end. I moved and pivoted into TV animation, where I got a job at Hanna-Barbera, the company that brought you Scooby-Doo and Johnny Quest and a bunch of other great animated episodic television. And I got to work on the real adventures of Johnny Quest. They were bringing Johnny Quest back from the late 60s, which I loved. Very PG, PG-13, action-adventure oriented. And we have to turn around a storyboard for an episode every 8 weeks, right? So that was really where I started to cut my teeth in storyboarding. And for those of you who don't know, storyboarding is kind of a conglomeration of everything in animation. I have to be the director, I have to be the cinematographer, I have to be the actor, I have to be the editor. And that was something that really spoke to me. Not only did I create worlds, I got to act or feel out what the characters are going to do. I also got to be behind the camera and be a cinematographer, which I loved. The power of storytelling in images alone was something that I was very, very, very keen to really study and learn, throw myself into. So every 8 weeks I get a new story. And there's not much changes in TV. You kind of do it. It's one and done, and it's out there. And it's being, ours was, Johnny Quest was being animated in Japan at the time, which was a first. Usually they go to Korea. And so that was really fun to be working with that studio. But then it comes out on TV, and it's there. That's what you get, right? In feature animation, it takes much longer to do. You could be on a single scene for a week to 2 weeks or longer, or do that scene, many, many, many iterations of that scene over the length of 2.5 years in story and features. So, but that's where I really cut my teeth. And then my brother, who got hired at Disney, he was one of the 5 that got hired. His mentor was Bill Perkins. Bill Perkins happened to be the art director of Aladdin. And so he would come out to lunch, and I would meet them for lunch. And that's how I got to know Bill Perkins. So that when Warner Brothers finally got into the animation gig, because Beauty and the Beast almost took Best Film from the live action in the Academy Award, then everybody got into the animation industry, right? DreamWorks started, Warner Brothers started, and so it was a big bursting thing. So Warner Brothers Animation started. Bill hired me. No portfolio needed. He already knew me and my work. And so they trusted him with pulling people, talent, into the studio. So I just walked into the doors of Warner Brothers one day and had a job. Storyboarding on Quest for Camelot. Did anybody see Quest for Camelot? Yeah. Yes, you did. Very good. You and like 5 other people. It didn't do very well in the box office. I think the movie stinks. But the log line for the movie is excellent. Excalibur gets stolen. Who doesn't want to see that film? I want to see that film. I got to board that scene. And that was the first time I ever got to pitch a scene to an audience. And it was a big deal. Now, I was kind of ambushed, so I boarded the scene, went back and forth with my directors, and they said, okay, this is perfect. Can you come and pitch it? I'm all sure. And when I walked into the room, it was like this many people here had showed up to see me pitch, because this was the first scene on their first animated film, right? So I was incredibly, incredibly nervous. We had the head of not only Warner Brothers Animation, we had the head of Warner Brothers there. They had invested a huge amount of money in raising this studio. So there was the president, the vice president, we had the CEO, the CCO, the CFO, the CPO, the CPPO, the XO. We had everybody, right, was there. And so I pitched, this is pretty much the opening scene of the movie where Excalibur gets sold. They jumped up out of their seats, clapping their hand and patting each other on the back. They're all, this movie's going to be amazing. And I thought it was going to be too, that it was going to be this huge action-adventure thing. And then they tried to just copy Disney, right? And turn it into another Little Mermaid or an Aladdin or something. And they lost their own voice, right? They didn't know who they were as an animation studio. They didn't have a brand yet. They were still developing it. And so they were chasing something else instead of planting a flag into who they are. So that was very upsetting as a new, kid getting out there in the animation world and putting, 150% into the movie that you're working on to make it as good as you can, and just seeing it get watered down. Well, the second movie did just as bad as the first movie in the box office, and that's Iron Giant. Anybody see Iron Giant? Wow, a lot more people. That's great. So that's when I met Brad Bird, and working for Brad was a very different experience. The first time I met him, it was he was giving a presentation. He just got hired by Warner Brothers to be doing the Iron Giant. He got up on stage, and he dropped more F-bombs than I've ever heard anybody drop in animation, in this family-oriented business that we're in. But I instantly recognized that he and I were on the same wavelength when it came to animated films. These are movies, right? It's not just animation, they're movies. And movie is about visual storytelling. It's about cinematography. It's about emoting. And so he kind of took animation and he placed it way up here alongside the greats in cinema history. That's where he wanted to take animation. And so we spoke the same language. Me and Brad in the story room goes something like this. He goes, Mark, this is great. What I want you to do is here's, I want you to a little more, and I go, yeah, but a little, do you want to, and he's all, yeah, and then a little here, and I go like, why don't we put a little here, and he's all, it's great, and then we, that's how we talk. The translators are having a really hard problem with that right now. But we had that secondhand language already. My little anecdote was really funny is, so we have all of our storyboard artists that were on Quest for Camelot. Brad comes in, says, hey, I'm doing the Iron Giant, and we're going to be hiring out of this pool of storyboard artists. And I'm all, great. And I'm so excited. I'm already drawing storyboards for the Iron Giant, not knowing anything what the movie's about. I'm going, woo, Brad's going to love these. I'm going to get hired. And then I see every one of my storyboard artists get hired and not me. So they're all going and leaving to work with the great Brad Bird, who's great before he even became great. Simpsons is the family dog is what he'd done so far. They're all getting hired. I'm all, this guy's a moron. He's not getting the best. I'm the best. I was a little arrogant at the time. I'm the best. I draw the backgrounds in these shots. Why isn't he hiring me? He's hiring all these other people. They're getting hired. I was the last one left on Quest for Camelot. What I didn't know at the time was the director on Quest for Camelot was keeping me. He wouldn't let me go because I was a workhorse. He'd be in editorial drawing notes and editorial all night long, and I'd come in the morning. There'd be a stack of drawings this big on my desk that I had to clean up. I had to make pretty. So I'd come into work and go, one, make it pretty. Two, that was my day for months, was just cleaning up the director's very rough drawings. So when I finally got the call and I was able to go over and see Brad Bird and get on the project, I walked in and Brad's all, you're finally here! Oh, thank God you're finally here. I was actually their first pick. But Quest for Camelot wouldn't let me go because I was a workhorse. So they were waiting for the workhorse to show up. And that was great. Now this was my first, we've been 2D animation, it's great, computers are just coming up, they're doing things like ink and paint on computers. We don't have real 3D, it's starting to show up, and so Iron Giant was going to be 3D animated, the actual giant, put in a 2D form, which is a whole process in and of itself. But the other thing that was really fascinating to me was this whole idea of using computers to do After Effects. Does anybody know After Effects, the program? A lot of you, yeah. It's a fantastic program where I get to move these illustrations and stuff like that. And we had a fantastic After Effects artist, Andy Jimenez. And all of a sudden, we had dimensionality in the boards. Just by cutting up the drawings and doing backgrounds, he could do 3D moves and all this stuff, which was fantastic. So Brad was using that in Iron Giant, again, to create the cinematics, right? To create the animatic, to create the real, but he wanted to have the dimensionality. He wanted to move the camera, which was very hard in animation at the time because you'd have to draw your camera move, right? And it's still a slideshow when you're watching the boards, one image at a time. But with Andy, using After Effects, we can actually do all the moves you could ever want to do, right? So we got the cinema back into animation. And so that was technology just beginning to help in this process, in the story process. So we did Iron Giant, and nobody saw it, right? It also flopped at the box office. So here I am, a newbie in animation, 2 films under my belt, they both flop, right? I'm all, what's going on here, right? Because Iron Giant was great. Why did it flop? Quest for Camelot, not so great. I understand why that flopped. And then I did Osmosis Jones. They hired me to be head of story, so I jumped up into a supervising role. It was a nightmare production, just because now I got to look behind the curtain and see everything that was going on in animation. And it's behind the scenes in production, for those who know. It can get crazy. It gets crazy. And this was already a trouble production right off the bat. But my job as a head of story was to protect the team. and get my team to do the best work that they possibly could. After I did a stint as head of story on Osmosis Jones, I left, and I went to work with Sam Raimi on the very first Spider-Man movie. How many people saw the very first Spider-Man movie? Yay! A lot of you. Great. I boarded almost that entire movie. And Sam was really great to work with. And to me, I get asked this question all the time. What's the difference between animation storyboarding and live action storyboarding? To me, zero. Visual storytelling is visual storytelling. Filmmaking is filmmaking. It doesn't matter what it is, what medium you're in. The visuals are the same. The use of the visual components are the same to help support and tell the story. So, and Sam is like a big kid. He is so fun to work with. He makes it really easy, and he doesn't show that he's stressed either, even though that production was very stressed. It was their big first big superhero movie, very expensive, and they really wanted it to be a hit. But Sam would go, you board it, I shoot it. And we had the great Don Burgess, who's an Academy Award-winning DP, on there, and me and him would get in fights about my storyboards. He goes, I can't get this shot. I can't get, there's no, and I'm all, it's an approximation, dude, because it's a drawing. It's not through a lens. It's an approximation. You see how low the camera is? So it's a low shot, more ceiling, and we're pushing in. So we bunked heads all the time, but at the end of the day, he was fine. He got it, because Sam would hold him to, this is what I want in the boards. Afterwards, and that went great. That was my first successful movie, was Spider-Man, right? Through the roof, big blockbuster. I was like, oh, that's how it works. But he asked me to second unit direct on Spider-Man on the first one. But I couldn't, because Brad Bird hired me to go on to The Incredibles. So I moved my family up to the Bay Area, and we started working on The Incredibles. I was the head of story. Now, this was a very different experience. Pixar, they'd only made 3D movies, right? We had one little Iron Giant who was 3D. So they were the ones really pushing the tools at the time and the technology into movies. So Brad, we moved up there. So Brad hired about 12 of us, and we were branded the Dirty Dozen, because we weren't homegrown at Pixar. A lot of my friends who had gone to CalArts with me got hired into Pixar right out of school. So they had only known the John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter way of making the movie. Steve Jobs hired Brad Bird to come in to be a new voice, right? I like to say it's vanilla, vanilla ice cream at Pixar. Brad was the chocolate chips, right? So chocolate chips and the vanilla, right? So we could change it up, and he brought his voice. And Incredibles was the first PG movie at Pixar. They had only do G-rated up to this point. So we came in, and we were a little bit more muscular and fighting and going in and getting into the alley and having brawls. So we got treated a little bit with disdain. The noses were up at Pixar. Oh, you're one of those people from Los Angeles. So it's this very little arrogant attitude there. But Brad and the team, we really won them over, and especially when we pumped out the first animatic of Incredibles, we did about half of it. And Steve Jobs was there, and I remember I was walking out of the theater with Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs looks at me and he goes, why don't we just release that? And I turned to Steve Jobs, I'm all, because it's not in color, Steve. Steve was a great guy to hang with and to talk. He's really smart, really knew what he was doing, and he was a great proponent of this merging of technology and storytelling. So we worked on Incredibles. That was another success. And then they asked me, I remember Brad asked me, we were working on his last days of story. It was just me and Brad in the room looking at the storyboard, figuring out what to do here, and notes. It wasn't working quite right. And Brad kind of turns to me, he's all, what do you think about directing? And I'm all, yeah, sure, yeah, that's okay. Why? He's all, because I threw your hat in the ring, because Pixar is looking for new directors, and they want to look in-house. And so they're gonna ask you to be one. I'm all, oh, really? Thanks. I hadn't even thought about doing this role when I was younger. I was perfectly happy drawing storyboards and being in a head of story position. So I got to meet with Ed Catmull, president, and then I got hooked up with Andy Jimenez, and we did One Man Band, which got an Academy nomination. I don't know if anybody's seen One Man Band. But that was a great test bed of working in 3D with all the departments. And then Brad Bird called me one day, and Ratatouille happened. Anybody see Ratatouille? Hey! All right. Well, Ratatouille was in trouble. They had worked on it for 6 years, and it came down to the 18-month deadline before release. And at that 18 months, Ratatouille was not where it was supposed to be as a film. It wasn't at that level that we had been operating on all the Pixar films up to date. So they made a director change. And this happens all the time. It happened early in Pixar's history with Toy Story 2. The directors weren't working out, so they made a change. At that point, they made it at 9 months before the movie came out, which was really, 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 really hard on the crew. You guys have probably heard all the horror stories. Leaving children in cars because everybody's working so long. You're driving to work, you forgot to leave your kid, drop your kid off, and you go to work, and the kid's sitting in the car going, Mommy, Daddy, where are they? Am I just supposed to sit here in the heat? Very bad. Nobody got injured. But so that now they decided 18 months is the deadline. In case of the film's not working, break glass, 18 months, do a change. So this happens all the time in the film industry because it's a business. If something's not working, you make the change so that you can get it back on track and make it work. So Ratatouille happened. I remember I was changing a diaper of one of my kids. I think it was a Jack. My wife's here, so I'm just checking in to see which kid it was. So it was Jack, changes his diaper. I heard the phone ring. My wife answered it. Then she comes running upstairs. She's all, it's Brad, right? I'm all, uh-oh, I know what this is, because I know Ratatouille was in trouble and it was going to need some help. So I hated Ratatouille. I hated the idea. I hate talking animals. It's such an animated trope, it drives me bananas, especially if we're trying to elevate animation to stand up there with like Stanley Kubrick films. He didn't do any talking anything, right? So that was one of my big animation pet peeves. I'm now working on a project that is all talking animals. Just by the way. So I had to make up my mind right there of coming out of development where I'm working on my own stories to help Brad Bird on Ratatouille. And because me and Brad Bird have already done a couple movies together, I would chop off my left arm to work with Brad. And so when I picked up the phone, he's all, hey, Mandrews, what's going on? I just got a call from Pixar and they want me to direct Ratatouille. So I said, yeah, and you're the first call I made. I can't do this without you. And hey, silver lining, it's only going to be 18 months. So, and then you'll be done. And I'm all, yeah, I'm in, I'll do it. And so, and then we did Ratatouille together, which was a blast, even though I hated every waking moment on Ratatouille. But the way I got over that is I found my in. I found a way into it, something that I could really dive into and grab a hold of it. And to me, that was visual storytelling. It was, what if the camera was really tiny that a rat could carry around on his shoulder and film? What would that be like? So the cinematography was my way in to really get in there and to punch up and to help tell that story from a rat's POV. And so that worked out well. We got the Academy Award, blah, 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 blah. I was back in development. And then we had when I got back into development, they said, what do you want to do? And I've been tracking the John Carter of Mars production for a long time. It started with, I forget the director's name, but he did Sky Captain, right? This kind of 300-esque on green screen CG thing, which was pretty okay. So he had it first. He didn't make it, ultimately didn't get made. Then it went to Jon Favreau, right? Jon Favreau started making it, and then at Paramount, and Paramount dropped the ball. And so my brother and a friend of mine, they were working on it. So the day they called me up and said they just canceled Favreau's John Carter Mars was the day before I went back into development at Pixar. So I went into development, and the head of development said, what do you want to make? And I said, John Carter of Mars, animated here at Pixar. They're all, whoa! So he checked with the estate, made sure that that was true, that we can get the rights, and we could. And then Andrew Stanton heard about it, and he came up to me, he's all, let's not do it in animation, let's do it in live action. You and me write and direct together, and we go out and do it, and we'll do all 11, because there are 11 books. I'm all, hot dog, let's do it. So we went off, and that was my first stint in live action. Now, this is an epiphany. This is a big changing point in my life, because it was finally animation at that time. I was happy to be in animation, the whole process. And the process of animation is very siloed, and it's very assembly line. You start for here, you get that done, then you go to here, and then that's done. You go to here, and then that's done. When I was in live action, suddenly it was a process that moved as fast as I could think. If something was wrong, because I had everything, I had context. Context in storytelling is everything. I'm not guessing of what it's going to look like. I'm not guessing how these elements are coming together. It's all there in front of me. So if the shot's not working, I can move the camera. If the lighting's not working, I can adjust the lights. If the background action isn't working, I can adjust that. If the actors aren't working, I can give them a note. If the blocking's not working, I can change the blocking. Real time, right? We finished John Carter. We all know how that turned out, right? Another bomb. That's all right. And then I came back into animation, and Brave was in trouble. Brave had been 7 years, and it wasn't up to that level, so they made a director change, and I had 18 months to redo all of Brave. And that turned out great, but I was incredibly frustrated doing Brave, because I was back from going light speed and having context-based filmmaking where I can make notes like this and try things and iterate right there, back to animation where if I wanted to iterate, it cost a lot of money. I could only iterate on the boards. And the boards are not the final product. It's missing so many elements. And so when I was done with Brave, and that was great, I sat down with the two presidents at the time, Ed Catmull and Jim Morris, and I said, I need to do this differently. Technology exists right now, motion capture technology, okay? And I'm not meaning like Zemeckis one-to-one motion capture. I'm all, you use the motion capture to sketch out my scenes, just like I would do in live action. I get a bunch of actors together. You can retarget the stop motion. You can puppeteer creatures. Stop motion, motion control, no, motion capture is an incredibly powerful tool just to visualize and create ideas. So get me a stage, give me the mocap actors, give me rough 3D assets, and I'm going to throw 2D out altogether. Because that's the one thing that I understood. Animation had always been one-to-one. It had started in 2D. You make a 2D animated movie, it stays in 2D. And then along comes the computer that makes 3D. So you start in 2D because that's all they understood, because 3D was so expensive, the tools were so expensive, you couldn't start in 3D. So then you have to go into making it all again in 3D. And that translation from those two mediums is why animation took so long. Because if I just draw a tooth, that tooth suddenly in 3D has to have volume and shape. Is it perfectly cylindrical? Is it a cone? Does it have an edge to it? Did you pinch it? Is it fat this way or is it fat this way? Does it come to a point? How round it is? This is all the information that you cannot get in a drawing. 3D is a whole nother level. It's almost physical reality. And that's why these animated movies took so long. So Jim and Ed said, great, yes, what do you need? I said, I need a motion capture volume. I need a stage. And so Pixar built me one. They built me a 60 by 70 foot volume, which is massive. I worked with ILM at the time because they had already done a lot of mocap stuff for the special effects and for the video games. They were making some awesome Star Wars video games. And I broke all their tools. And they had to rewrite programs for me to make what I was trying to do work. And what I was trying to do was trying to see, I used the 3D motion capture as my new sketch, right? I would go in with just a rough script or an idea, and I'd build the scene on the stage in 3D. And that was really fantastic for me because I could concentrate on the storytelling. I could concentrate on the interaction with these characters. And then the characters can go away, and I come back in with what's called a virtual camera, where the camera's being caught by the virtual system and motion capture, but I'm looking through a little iPad on the end of this stick, and I can see the shot and all the elements, right? It was fantastic. I could shoot coverage like I could in live action. Animation with coverage? What the heck? That just blew open the amount of ideas I could have. And the more cracks you have at bat, the better the hitter you're going to be, right? Imagine if you're learning how to play baseball or learning how to do anything, and you get one shot every month. That's what animation is. It's one shot every month. Versus if you're in this 3D environment, every space, you're working every single day at the same thing because you're in context. That right there, tools helping me tell the story, is a massive, massive change in the animation industry. The more computer tools that we get, the more technology that we get, the better stories that we're going to be able to tell. Because for the creatives, I get to try on ideas. Ideas that I may not have tried and left just on the floor. When I was back drawing storyboards, my floor would be littered with drawings. I go like this. This is how I draw. Nope. 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 Oh, save. Nope. Nope. Stupid. Nope. Ah! That's a creative process, right? So my floor was littered with drawings, right? People would come in and go, slip, because like walking on glass. It was a paper on top of paper on top of paper. It was so slippery in there. Animators would come up and go, can I have this drawing? I'm like, it's on the floor. Yeah, take it. Just don't take from the pile on my desk. That's the done stuff. And every once in a while, the animators got smart, and they would come in, and because all the paper was overlaid on each other, they just start at one end of the room, and they'd roll it up. They'd roll up my floor, and they'd be walking out with a tube this long of storyboards, right? It's crazy. But that's what I was trying to get to as a creative, is find a process that lets me iterate, have as many ideas as I can. And I know 99% of the ideas are going on the floor. But if I can do that fast, then it's faster for me to get to that 1% of ideas that actually going to make it into whatever I'm making. So I did that into development. I left Pixar at 2018. Ultimately, their brand and my brand didn't mix. I'm a PG-13, R-rated storyteller at heart, trapped in a family animated G-rated world, right? So I got out. It was very amicable. It was very fine. We're all still friends. It wasn't heated. And I went on to try and see if I could find projects that are in my wheelhouse, find or pitch projects, and find out if any other studios wanted to get in the Mark Andrews business of PG-13 R-rated animated content, whether that's feature or streaming. But what I was doing for my production-wise, I wanted to get into real-time production. And so what I had been doing in motion capture, tagged that with the Unreal Engine or any game engine, suddenly I had the rendering capabilities at 24 to 60 frames a second. I can now have lighting. I can now have shading. I can now have a lot of other things that the engine gets you for free that I can incorporate in my storytelling. So did anybody see Supergiant Robot Brothers on Netflix? Yes, that's my biggest fan right here, right? One up there in the back. So you guys should all go watch that. Supergiant Robot Brothers on Netflix. It's an animated, 3D animated series on Netflix that was all done in engine. Final pixel render in engine. It didn't go through servers. We went play. And that's what we pushed out, right? We did 5 hours of content in 18 months. That's 10 half hours. Nobody does that. That's incredibly fast. That's a lot of work. I do a little mental math. That was, I'm going to drop some numbers here. So that's $13 million, 10 episodes, 1.3 an episode. And I designed the look for that budget and for that time because they go, we need it now. They had been developing this for 2 years and they were going to cancel it. And I was talking to RealFX about another project that was Mars related. And they said, hey, you want to take over on this project? I'm all, yes, sure, on 2 conditions. One, let's age it up. It was for preschoolers. I want it to be for high schoolers, number one. Number two, let's do this real-time process. And they said, okay, without really knowing what that meant. And we get it, and we got on the stage, and we got into, and it was all reanimated. I don't keep the motion capture, guys. The motion capture is just for staging and blocking the cinematography. Then I lock the edit, and I hand it to the animators, and the animators go to town. And they had so much fun. They were animating 25 to 30 seconds a week. That is unheard of in animation. I animated on 2s, 3s, 4s, 6s, and 8s, just like they do in anime, right? A, to save money, but also to save time. And so that they can iterate, so we can try things and we could push things. So Supergiant Robot Brothers. Now let's do the math. $13 million, 5 hours. Okay? How many features are in there? So this is what is exciting to me and to all you guys who are going to be out there in the industry and maybe becoming directors and telling your own stories. The era of the independent animated film is here. $10 million or less can get you 90 minutes of excellent, excellent quality animation. You don't need to be photoreal. It's a waste of time, right? And it doesn't put butts in seats, and it doesn't get you extra big box office. Just tell the best stories you can. And to tell the best stories you can, as a creative, you're going to want that freedom to make mistakes. You're going to want that freedom to fall flat on your face. You're going to want that freedom to figure out what you're even saying and to discover. That's what technology in the industry allows us to do. AI is a hot topic word. That's a whole nother lecture in and of itself. But I'm going to tell you this. Don't be afraid of it. AI is years and years and years and years and years away from taking your jobs. Years and years and years away from taking your jobs. And there are people out there in Hollywood that want it to take your jobs because they don't want to pay you, right? But the people creating AI aren't artists. They're not even creatives. So they're not making it worth our while, right? What AI can do now is what I use it for is to iterate quickly, right? But soon the AI will be able to help us in production with the pain points in production, which has most to do with tracking all the data we're tracking. Is massive amounts of information. And we've got a ton of people helping look over all that stuff, right? And keeping everything in its nice little organizational box, you know, producerial-wise. So don't worry about it right now. But that's the benefit of technology and animation and storytelling. It lets the storyteller tell as many stories as I possibly can so I can get the best story out there to the audience. So that's my journey. Right now I'm a gun for hire in animation, right? Trying to find my next project, feast or famine, and I'm having a great time, and there's an exciting world that's out there because we're seeing an inflection point again in animation right now that hasn't happened since Pixar started using 3D to make animated movies. That's all I have to say for you today. I'll open it now up to questions, if anybody has questions from the audience. Thank you for having me, guys. Questions from the audience? Yes, way in the back. I saw your hand. Your hand first. Oh, here comes the mic.
Yeah, my question is about your process with motion capture.
Yeah.
So do you use this like as a base of storyboarding, or is it like a replacement for storyboarding?
That's great. Yes, no more storyboarding in the traditional idea that storyboarding is, where the storyboard artist is going to be drawing shots, right? I don't need them to be cinematic anymore. I don't need them to do shots because I'm going to be doing all the shots in the coverage and you can't keep up with me. In one day, I could knock off 500 shots on the stage. There's nobody that can draw that fast, right? So, but what I want them to concentrate on, what we do instead is I comic book the script. So they would do a comic book of the script. Number one, it lets the story artist bite off a lot more of the story, right? In traditional animation, I give you 1-2 pages for a scene, and you're doing a scene. This, I can give you 10 pages of a script. In Supergiant Robot Brothers, we ended up with about 30 to 40 pages of script for a 22-minute show, okay? It's insane. There's a lot of editing. But it was only 4 board artists, right? and each of us would take 10 pages, and we get it done in a week. Now, if you remember what I said in my Hanna-Barbera days, it was 8 weeks to do a single storyboard for one show. We were knocking out a show a week. 1 week. That show was boarded. We comic book it. Now, the comic book does a lot of things for us. A, it's easier to read than a script because you have visuals. Anybody read comic books here? Yay! Okay, if you don't, you should. Comic books is a visual script, right? Not only, and you have context again, so everybody knows where the characters are, what they're saying, who's saying what, where are they in the environment, what's happening in the environment. So they get to understand what we're trying to make already. And it's also an asset generator. I can hand this out to all the departments. They read the comic, and they can now see what the context of the assets are going to be for. Size relationships, what the action is going to be, etc. So it's actually much faster and more economic to comic book the script, especially since I'm on stage.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next question. Right over there, right across. Luckily, the same row.
Hey, what would you recommend for a person who doesn't know what to do next? Like, like you are good on art, like 3D or like a lot of stuff and you are good on everything, but, well, not on everything, but you know that you like everything. But you need to focalize to emphasize in only one thing to be good. So what would you recommend for a person who doesn't know, like, how to do it?
Wow, you're in a tough spot, man. I'm sorry.
I am.
That's really hard. Make up your mind, man. What's the problem?
I have like a lot of stuff on here.
I know. You find out. I mean, I'm a what do they call it? It's no. It's that phrase, master of nothing.
Master of nothing, yeah.
What's the jack of all? You got my disease. I'm the jack of all trades disease, master of none, right? Though I'm very good at the jack of all trades, right? It's not like 85, 90%, right? Close to master, so that ain't bad. I was in the same spot, and I think that was really a cool thing that happened to me in my career early on. Disney wanted to put me in a box, saying you're only an animator, you're only a storyboard artist. When I didn't do that, at Hanna-Barbera, when I was done with my board, they go, can you do props? And I'm all, sure. Can you do this, that, and the other? Can you design environments? Yeah, sure, right? So I got to do a lot of things, right? On Iron Giant, I was designing stuff. All the Iron Giant's weapons, that's all, weapon systems was mine. That's a character design. When I got up to Incredibles and Pixar, the art department was too slow. They needed a velocipod. I designed the velocipods, the cars, everything. So I get to delve into all these other departments, which was really fun for me because that lets you have a sense of how the whole gets put together. So from here on out, since you like everything, that's fine, but you can just kind of choose your jobs or go after those jobs where you go, that's really exciting, they need a board artist, I'm in. That's really exciting, they need an animator, I'm in. That's really exciting, they need a shader or rigging or a lighter, I'm in. Because you know all the rest. You know what I mean? But that's a tough, I don't got any advice, but just, it doesn't matter. If you like it all, then it almost doesn't matter. Let the job tell you that's available.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions? Right down here. This is 1 and 2. It's 1 back up there and 2. I'm just going off the hands I see first. 2's right here. Yes. Here it comes to you. Yes. Up there? There was number 2 up here, or number 1 up here. Yeah. I got her. She's number 2. Okay, we're gonna go 1, 2. Okay, go.
What are you looking for your next project? What is like the type of history that are you looking for in the future?
What am I looking for my next project? I'm looking for PG-13 R-rated storytelling. That's what I want to push in animation. With the advent of Love, Death, and Robots kind of kicking in the glass ceiling for animation, even in modern films when we have superhero movies, and Marvel did Logan and Joker, which are R-rated, suddenly they're taking child content, right, and they're kicking it up a notch into that next level to tell more intense stories. Japan have been doing this for years. That's what I grew up on, right? Well, what can we do? Why is Akira animated? I get that all the time. Why is this project animated in the States? It's like, who gives a rat's butt, right? They're not asking that in Japan. They're just doing it because animation in its of itself is just another medium. It's like, why do you paint that instead of draw it versus charcoal it versus watercolor it versus take a photograph of it? Who cares? That was the artist's, the creative's choice was that medium. So now we can do that same thing. So I'm looking for projects that are in that level so I can tell the stories that grip me, that have always gripped me. Intense stories about characters way in over their head. Because to me, that's what storytelling is about. You know about a character based off the choices they make, right? If they have to make choices that is life and death, I'm going to learn way more about that character. So that's why I'm in that action, adventure, thriller, to do an animated horror movie, that would be insane. I would love that. A slasher film in animation, give it, sign me up. I'm ready to go. So those are the kinds of things I'm looking for.
Can a person care about the same project about like animation and VFX animation? Do
Yes.
you understand it?
Tell me your question again.
Imagine that we have a project.
Yep.
And I know about the 3D animation and VFX animation.
Yes.
Can I take care about both of them?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, animation is animation. I mean, there's different goals to each, right? But there are some fabulous animators that are in the VFX world animating, And I think that's the exciting thing about animation because you forgot video games, right? You got video games. We've got animation that's theatrical and streaming or whatnot. You've got, and then you got VFX. But then we also got TikTok, people. Come on, what are you doing? You animators should be TikToking this all the time with your animation. You guys are lazy. Let's get it out there, right? Start developing your brand and working on it right now. That's exciting. That's why animation is never going to go away. It's just it's more generative. People want more stuff. So yes, you're good to go. Another question. I got one up there. There's 1, 2, and 3 right here. One in the back, 2 and 3. Let's get the microphones. Keep your hands up if you have a question. There's the microphone. There's a microphone. That's number 2, but that's fine. We'll go out of order. Just
I don't know if I actually can ask 2 questions.
Sure.
Okay.
If you can pose them as one. To not rob anybody else. Know what I mean? Just put an and in there.
Okay, my first question is, which one do you consider is the production that you have worked in that has the most emotional meaning to you?
Woof. Okay, what's your second one?
Which one will be your advice for a beginner animator?
Oh, okay. Okay, so advice for a beginning animator. We all suck. You suck. I suck, you suck. We suck. Get over it, right? We're not coming out of the gate nailing it. It's a process, right? So you understand what your weaknesses are, right? You don't have to work on your strengths. Work on the weaknesses. If you go, oh, I mean, I got pinned down early for not having expressions in any of my work, and my instructor would go, you don't have any expressions. There's no expressions. I don't know how to feel about this character. I hated him so much. But that's got me to work on that weakness, right, where I suck. And so that's my advice to all students. Don't worry about it. We all suck. We're all in the sucky world, right? And you're going to suck for a long time. And then suddenly you're not going to suck. And then you're going to find somebody that's doing way better than you, and suddenly you suck again, right? So it's a process that just has plateaus, right, that are going. So it's not like there's a pinnacle and you're there and you're done, right? This is a constant growth in creativity, right? But concentrate on your weaknesses. Now, what's the project that's the most emotional to me, that I had the most emotional connection to?
Yeah.
Every single one is emotional for different reasons. I got asked, I was just at South by Southwest Sydney, and I got asked what are the highlights of my career. And, I mentioned, hey, I got into Cal Arts. That was a highlight. I got picked for the internship. That was a highlight. I didn't get hired at the internship. That was a highlight. So, I worked on Iron Giant. That was a highlight. Iron Giant bombed at the box office. That was a highlight. So, to me, the highlights are also the lows and the highs, because they start defining for me, right, this whole process and the journey that I'm on. So it's the same thing with, I hated Ratatouille. I couldn't be more proud of Ratatouille, now that it's out, right, and it got an Academy Award, right? No, even if it didn't, I'd be proud of it because the work that we did on all the projects is very meaningful for me in every way because I just throw in 110%. That's done. Now I'm trying to find that other one. I'm going to throw in another 110% in. Okay, next we had a question here and here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheater. 2 questions with 1. We got another microphone down here. If we could get the second microphone down here. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
You said that we are currently on Prime animation, in the animation, for example, of Death Robots and as such. But at the same time, I keep hearing a lot of layoffs. The Animation Guild is currently on strike, etc. Previously, if you, for example, got hired to work as animator in Simpsons, you would stay and you knew you were going to be there for a long time. And nowadays, at least for what I heard, is you get a job maybe for 6 months if you're lucky.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask your recommendations for like everyone that is in here, because we want to start in an industry that I feel currently is going really fast, and it's not very, like we are in streaming service moments where shows are being cancelled left and right. So what is your opinion and what is your recommendation for everyone that wants to start?
Relax, number 1.
Sorry.
Relax. You guys get to live through the era of the Black Cauldron at Disney, when there was no animation happening anywhere except for in TV, right? We go through cycles, and for those of you who were in school or just out of school, were in school, I mean, we just had a double whammy. We had COVID, which locked down everybody for 2.5, 3 years, and then we had strikes throughout Hollywood from writers and all that stuff. I mean, that animation is striking now. It's like, late to the game, guys. You should have gone in with everybody else, in my very uninformed opinion. You would have bigger chips at the bargaining table because animation is what kept the industry afloat through COVID, because you could just work from home and still make animated movies. It's insane. But I'm not seeing, I mean, and there's a lot of risk aversion out there because the industry spent a whole crap load of money over COVID, getting people working from home and all this stuff. But I don't see things necessarily slowing down. People are pinching their pennies, right, and holding on to it. But I was just at South by Southwest, and everybody down there is going, animation, 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 we're making shows by animation, animation. I mean, Animal Logic just hired a bunch of people, all this other people just hired a bunch of people. But they're coming out of a downturn, a natural downturn, right, from that COVID, from that strike thing where everything kind of went, ugh, right? The saying on the street is stay alive till 25. So we're seeing a resurgence start to come back up because content isn't slowing down. And who cares? Netflix is canceling shows right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. It doesn't matter. You have to have a lot of money to do that, right? To go, let's do this show. I didn't like that. Let's do this show. I didn't like that either. Let's do this show. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of disposable income to be going, right, all over the place. So people are trying to find hits, right? All these interviews that I've had at some of the big studios, they're all, we need the hits, Mark. We need the hits. And I'm here to provide you hits. Imagine this, using this technology that I'm talking about, you being able to iterate fast for a very low amount of money. I can go into any studio right now and say, you give me $1 million a pop. I'm going to raise it to 2. $2 million a pop per film you think you're going to make an animation, okay? Let's call it 5 films. That's $10 million. For $10 million, I can tell you at the end of a year, a single year, we're going to have a little animation film festival at the studio. I will have made, or me and a bunch of other people, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you guys. We're all going to make a film for $1 million, right, using this process, have a film festival at the end of the year, and show the executives at every studio. This is what the technology can allow to happen, okay? Show all 5 films, and you're going to find your hit, or you're going to find your hit that's very close to being a hit, because what they're watching is they're not reading a script, which is never a movie. That's just an idea. And you have to have a great imagination, but even your great imagination, you better find the person, the partner on that thing that also has a great imagination. Nothing's going to happen, right? The greatest script in the world can still be a dud, right? The crappiest script in the world can win an Oscar. You know what I mean? So the script isn't the thing. The proof is in the pudding is something that I've come to believe. This is how I want to operate. I want to give you what you want. Then you give me the budget to make that thing. So they'll watch all 5 movies. They'll go, this one's the hit, Mark. I'm all, Great. How much is that worth to you? Oh, let's throw in Make It 4, whatever, right? But there may be a couple others that go, these are really good. There's just a little thing we need to do, and then that'll be a hit, and it's great. But now they're budgeting to assuage the risk of spending the money. They're budgeting on something that is a known property instead of a phantom. You know what I mean? That's where this is going. This is the new conditions that are going to be in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry, even over here in Europe and overseas, right? This is what technology is going to allow to happen. We'll be able to operate from a place of knowing. And that's exciting to me, because that means I get to try a lot more. So success is going to be a new look, right? Success is going to be just trying to make something to put up to see if it's going to be made. So those jobs are still going to be out there.
Thank you.
Another question we had right down here. Yes.
Okay, so now that you have some experience and know
Some.
how and know how the industry
Just
works,
kidding.
what would you say to your younger self?
To my younger self? Ooh, that's a good one. What would I say to my younger self now that I have some experience? Yeah, I'd say don't sweat it. I'd say learn as much as you can. Sit down, shut up, and just learn. I mean, there's so many talented people, especially if you're a student or you're just entering the business, that have been around for a while. These are veterans who fought wars, right? Who know the ins and outs, who knows what happens, and every production is different and every story is different. But you can learn from them. Story is alchemy, right? Story doesn't work all the time. Story is elusive, right? Or Steven Spielberg would have hit after hit after hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. He doesn't, right? Stanley Kubrick doesn't. You know, a lot of his are good, right? Kurosawa doesn't. A lot of his are good, right? I could take some more than others. But this is a subjective industry, right? So just relax and just absorb everything. We learn by doing. We learn more from doing and going through these crucibles, right? I would tell myself, hey, if it's My Little Pony, work on that. Who cares, right? Because I was going, oh, My Little Pony, I couldn't possibly. You know, Simpsons. I hate The Simpsons. I'm the only one in the room that hates The Simpsons. I would never work on The Simpsons if I was younger, because those weren't stories that appealed to me, right? But learning, opportunity, if it comes from anywhere, is valuable, right? That's going to make you a better artist at the end of the day, no matter what it is. Whether it's My Little Pony, whether it's my daughter would, when she was growing up, would watch all those crazy straight-to-video Barbie movies. Oh my God, stab my eyes out. But there's some very talented artists working on those, making them come alive. It's valuable. So that's what I tell my younger self, right? There's no bad jobs.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? We got one right out here. And then one way in the back. Keep your hand up. Oh, we got that guy right there. You've had your hand up for a while. No, yes, we got to get that guy the mic over there. So this up the top first, and then that way in the top. Yes.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Thank you for the talk. It was fantastic.
Of course.
I'm going to ask a very selfish question. I'm in a position now where I'm pitching projects and I'm directing stuff and things like that in the US. And I find myself with a new challenge, which is managing producers and executives. And beyond having an idea and being able to pitch in it and having the stuff, you have to now manage their fears and manage their expectations.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that experience for you? You worked in live action in all these different studios.
Yep.
Some of that, some advice around this sort of how do you manage that relationship and so their fears?
Sure, yeah. Managing the execs in the room or whoever you're pitching to in Hollywood and kind of assuaging their fears and their concerns is nearly impossible. Because this isn't a reasonable, rational process. It's not like we're building widgets to go in a machine and I can show you the mathematics that this widget is going to save you $100 million, right? Money almost doesn't make any difference to the people, because I'm walking in doing the same thing. I'm walking in going, hey, you got some money? You want to do an animated film? They're all, yeah, no, I got just the thing. And I can bring it in for half what your budget is. They're all, okay, I'm still nervous and scared, even though it's half your budget. So even that doesn't move the needle on these folks. And I think the studios, the brands that you're dealing with is very important. What is the brand that they're looking for? And does your project fit within their brand? Is it a direction they want to go? They also have their own agendas, stuff that they have their people. They tell their little development execs to go out and find me stuff. Those development execs are coming in, talking to them. The development execs aren't necessarily creative. They may not have made anything in their entire lives, but they're thinking this would be a cool thing to see, or it works for those agendas and whatnot. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to do two things at once when I'm in the meetings. A, I'm trying to assuage their fears and say, look, bet on me, I'm going to deliver, right? I was the fixer at Pixar, right? That's what they called me, right? I fixed Supergiant Robot Brothers, right? I took that out of it was going to be thrown in a trash can, right? That's what I do. I'm a 30-year veteran. You're not going wrong. I've had the best mentors in the business who made the biggest movies and had the most Academy Awards. I learned from those guys. I'm their progeny, right? So I know what I'm doing. Doesn't move the needle. So what I'm trying to figure out is when I'm in the rooms is what is behind those kind of fears, right? What is their agendas and stuff like this? And at the end of the day, it's luck. It's right place, right time, right person. I've only sowed two things in the room in a pitch, ever, right? One of them didn't get made, and the other one, I'm still waiting for the decision whether we got the green light after 3 years of selling it in the room, where the head of the studio went, "There's nothing here I don't like." Exact quote. I should have been making it by now, people, and I'm not. What's the holdup? It's because it's a business. There's a business and there's a strategy and what it's going to go up against and what's in their slate and lots of stuff that we mere mortals can't understand. So it's like playing with the gods, right? Who knows Zeus's mind? No idea, right? So good luck. You're doing it. Water off a duck's back, right? That hard skin, and we just keep pounding our head on the wall, you know, and keep going out there. Well, I got one there, almost all the way back, and then one way in the back, and then this guy right up front here.
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to know a little bit more about your experience working with developers or programmers. If you have something
Yes.
that you work on virtual reality or another kind of interactive storytelling.
Yes. So my working with programmers and tools folks in IT, I love them. I love them. At Pixar, we had this guy, Michael Johnson. He's known as Wave. That's his nickname. Ed Catmull hired him right out of MIT, right? He was a genius in their media program. Came to work at Pixar, helped them write their shaders and all that stuff. He's great. He developed this, Pete Docter came to him and said, I need a little storyboarding program so I can draw and I can time and do stuff. And Wave whipped it up. It's called Pitch Doctor after Pete Docter. And it's the best storyboarding program there is out there that's not on the market because it's proprietary software at Pixar. But he made that. And so when I started to get in using mocap, right, to start developing my films, Wave built my stage. He started writing all the programs so they can put everything from the motion capture stage running through the Blade solver, and they can stuff it in their proprietary animation software. So everything off the stage was suddenly a shot that anybody can open, light, manipulate, whatever. So it's fantastic. So programmers are fantastic, but they need, the key ingredient to make them successful is to talk to the creatives and the artists that are going to be using the tools. That's what they need. So yeah, I kind of play very close to that whole group of people. Way in the back there, he's got his hand up, and then we got this guy down front. Way there in the back.
I have to say, Mark, we love you so much, but two more questions.
Two more questions we got, so that's one right there. So the first hand up after this guy.
Because we don't have time.
No worries.
Give me a moment, please.
No worries. You're looking it up on your phone? Did you pre-write this? It's awesome.
Yeah. Between 2D and 3D, which animation style do you find more difficult to animate?
Between 2D and 3D, they both are inherently, like, I got death threats from all the 2D animators on Iron Giant because I do perspective, and animators do not like to work in perspective, right? I got the same death threats in 3D from the effects people on Incredibles, because I did so many crazy effects that they hadn't done yet at the time. I would get nasty little emails. They're fun. They're all in jest. But I know I'm doing something right when I'm getting threats. It's all hard, right? Each one of those 2D has its own issues that are inherent with the limitations of that form. 3D has its own part due to the limitations of that form. You know what I mean? Finding the organics in 3D is incredibly, incredibly hard. The line in 2D, having something have energy and alive, right? It just seems to happen, right? Naturally, you don't have to do much. So I don't have a choice either way. I love working in 2D. I love working in 3D. We had one down here. This is our second to last question right there.
Hello. Can I also ask you 2 questions?
Oh, cheater.
Okay. Okay. Some of us have small animation projects and independent groups that we would like to start. But sometimes there's fears about difference in art, animation styles, etc. What would you recommend to a small animation group to improve?
So let me get this right. So you work individually, you work with the groups, and in the group, you guys are arguing over what style to do? Speak louder into your mic, please, sir.
Okay. Some of have...
No worries. All good.
No worries. Some of us have small animation projects and independent groups that we would like to start, but sometimes there's fear about differences in art animation styles.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to a small animation group to improve?
Fight it out. Strongest one wins. That's how it's always been. No, I'm just kidding. You can talk it out. I mean, here's the cool thing. My editor on Brave, Nick Smith, was fantastic. When I rolled in there, the first thing he said to me is his kind of motto, it's let's try it. Because it doesn't cost you anything to try it, to find it out. So try it. The proof is in the pudding, right? We speculate all the time. We theorize all the time. Until you actually do something, that's when you know. So try it. If you have some time and you have the money or whatever, just try it. Try it quickly. I mean, I think the biggest problem in animation today is nobody treats a production like the house is on fire. Everybody thinks they have all the time in the world, even when you don't, right? If all your houses or your apartments or wherever you live was on fire and you needed to race in there to grab the most important things in your life, you guys would know exactly what to grab. Those are the most important decisions, right? So I always operate as if the house is on fire. So if you guys are working together on a project, the house is on fire. Give yourself a deadline and say, guys, we can't bicker and argue whether we're going to do Disney 2D style, Miyazaki 2D style, Fleischner 2D style, something else 2D style, right? Pick one and go. Just try it. Put a stake in the sand and just try it. It's going to be evident if you're not liking it. You know what I mean? And then you turn around and find your other thing. Was that question number 1?
Yeah, it was
He's
number
reaching
1.
for the
Number
mic. Here
2
comes
is,
question number 2.
have you ever been interested in creating an independent animation project, a series, short film, or a webcomic?
Of course. That's what I'm doing, right? All I need is money. Anybody got any money? Well, I hear about all these VCs with billions of dollars coming out of their pockets going, I don't know what to spend it on. I just need a 10% return. It's like, okay, give me some of that money. We'll do it. But the era of the independent animated film is here. So I'm hoping, right, we'll catch something here, you know, real soon. And because this is the exciting thing for me. The technology and the tools out there are allowing smaller companies and studios to fight above their weight limit, right? They get to punch above their weight. And they can go for the big guys because the big guys are very complex and they're sedentary and they've got these systems that they've spent the last 3 decades building. They can't be nimble and flexible, right? They also have brands that they have to deal with, right? But animation, the fans, everybody out there wants just more animation and they want different stories. So let's give them different stories with different voices. Thanks everybody for coming. World Animation Fest, Madrid.
They love you, Mark.
I love them.